Can you feel the shift? The world is waking up. No more waiting. No more walls. Tired of the system. Tired of the slow. Waiting on permission for where your money goes. They tell you wait a week. They tell you pay the fee. But that ain't freedom. And that ain't for me. I need the speed of light. I need to break the chain. A digital revolution running through my veins. 15 seconds, that's all it takes to build a bridge that never breaks. Global access, open door. This is what we've been waiting for. Secure, fast forward, go! DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. Decentralized, we take the flight. From the city to the sand, power back in your hands. DigiByte, changing lives. It's more than just a coin. It's a brand new way to empower the people, giving them a say across the ocean, across the divide. No bank account needed to join the ride. Blue logo rising, the blocks never stop. Proof of work, yeah, straight to the top. 15 seconds, watching land value moving hand to hand. Global access, open door. This is what we've been waiting for. Unstoppable, unbreakable now. DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. Decentralized, we take the flight. From the city to the sand, power back in your hands. DigiByte, changing lives. Imagine a world where the barriers fall, where the smallest voice can stand up tall. Security is freedom, speed is opportunity. One blockchain, one community. Are you ready? Let's change the world. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, let's go! DigiByte, the future is fast. Changing lives. Can you feel the shift? The world is waking up. No more waiting. No more walls. Tired of the system. Tired of the slow. Waiting on permission for where your money goes. They tell you wait a week. They tell you pay the fee. But that ain't freedom. And that ain't for me. I need the speed of light. I need to break the chain. A digital revolution running through my veins. 15 seconds, that's all it takes to build a bridge that never breaks. Global access, open door. This is what we've been waiting for. Secure, fast forward, go! DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. A world where the barriers fall, where the smallest voice can stand up tall. Security is freedom, speed is opportunity. One blockchain, one community. Are you ready? Let's change the world. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, let's go! DigiByte, the future is changing lives.
Hello, everyone. Jared Tate here, the founder of the DigiByte blockchain. Today, I am coming to you with the most exciting presentation I have ever done in my 13-year history in blockchain and crypto technology. What if there was a way for you to tap into the value of your crypto that you're holding in your own self-custody wallet without ever selling or giving up your private keys? That's exactly the idea behind DigiDollar, the world's first truly decentralized, time-locked, over-collateralized stablecoin, built natively on a UTXO blockchain. No company to trust, no smart contract to hack, just you, your keys, and mathematics. So what is DigiDollar? This presentation is going to be split into 3 parts. Part 1 is this 5-minute overview introduction. Part 2 will be a technical deep dive. And then part 3 will be a hands-on usable demo with the current functioning release of the core wallet that has DigiDollar functionality in it that's actually on testnet right now that you can actually use. So before we get into the rest of part 1, I need to highlight a disclaimer here. First of all, anything I say in this presentation is not designed to be financial advice. What I'm about to explain to you is a completely new experimental idea that has not yet been deployed onto the actual mainnet of the blockchain. However, it is mostly functional as of right now on our DigiByte testnet. We are using state-of-the-art AI technology to help us code, audit, and do attacks and penetration testing on this system. However, like I said, this is experimental and nothing in life is guaranteed. So while this is active on testnet, it's not 100% complete yet, but we are rigorously testing it. And there are people all over the world that are helping do this. And I cannot thank you all enough, because it's important to remember this is a truly decentralized effort. There's no company behind this. There won't be anybody profiting directly off this system. There's no paid developers. And this is why we need your help to help take this idea, think it through, go test this on testnet, and help us make this better for all humanity, because this is why we're doing this. So what is DigiDollar? In the simplest explanation is DigiDollar lets you lock digibytes or DGB to create stable dollar-pegged digidollars that you can spend today while your crypto, your digibyte, stays safely time-locked in your very own wallet. When the time lock expires, you burn the original amount of digidollars that you issued, and then you get all your digibyte collateral back. And hopefully, any price appreciation that happened during the time lock. The key is your crypto never leaves your wallet. You become your own bank. So let me make this a little bit easier with a simple silver safe analogy. Imagine that you have $1,000 of silver in a safe stored in your basement. Now, this isn't just any sort of safe, it's a magical safe, meaning that let's say you have $500 you need to spend on Christmas presents. Well, you believe that the value of your silver is going to go up long term. And we're talking about silver, the precious metal here. So bear with me. This is a thought experiment. And let's say you want to get that $500, but you don't want to sell the silver. Well, what if you could go to your magical safe and put the time lock on for 10 years? And in exchange for time locking your silver for 10 years, because you believe 10 years from now, the value of silver is going to go up significantly, that you can get the $500 to spend today. Well, that's exactly how the DigiDollar works. So you get your $500 from your magical safe, you can go spend it, and then 10 years goes by. Let's say the price of silver is appreciated 10x. All you have to do to unlock your silver is take the original $500 that your safe gave you, pay yourself and your own collateralized loan back, and then boom, the time lock expires and you can now open your safe again. Now, clearly, there's no such thing as a safe that works like that. But the beautiful thing about a blockchain is this can happen on chain. So how does DigiDollar work? Well, in the simplest terms, there's really 4 parts. You can lock up your DigiByte as collateral. You get DigiDollars by minting it when you lock up. And then you can use DigiDollars anywhere. That's the idea. And then whenever you want to redeem and unlock the original DigiByte you locked as collateral, you send the original amount of DigiDollars, and then you unlock it and get your original amount of DigiByte back. But during this entire process, you never give up control of your private keys, and it all happens in a self-custody core wallet. So why build something like this on DigiByte and not other blockchains? Well, first of all, DigiByte has been around for almost 12 years now. It's never been hacked, and it has 100% uptime. There's really only maybe Bitcoin and Litecoin that can say that. It's also a UTXO chain, which becomes very important later on, which we'll get into in the technical deep dive. And then finally, it's very fast. It's 40 times faster than Bitcoin. So real-time payment transactions, the merchants with DigiDollars can happen extremely fast. And then the most important thing is DigiByte has a hard cap of 21 billion. Now that's 1,000 times more than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is hard capped at 21 million. And in early emails, when Satoshi was asked why he chose the 21 million hard cap, he alluded and mentioned that if Bitcoin ever became really popular, that the developers could simply move the decimal place over and make it so there was 21 billion Bitcoin. Now, that's never happened, but that's how I got the idea for 21 billion max supply. So that's why for every 1 Bitcoin, there's only going to be 1,000 DigiByte ever created or mined. And this creates a hard cap. This creates scarcity. And this is important for DigiByte to become a reserve asset that people time lock and lock up to be able to collateralize and support the DigiDollar ecosystem. So what makes DigiDollar different than other stable coins that are out there that people are familiar with, like USDT issued by Tether, USDC issued by Circle, or the new PayPal PiUSD? Well, first of all of those are issued by a central company. And that company has the ability to freeze your stable coins remotely anytime they want. And in order to get those stable coins, you have to go sell your crypto, which means you give up your private keys and you often have a taxable event. And you have significant counterparty and regulatory risk in different jurisdictions. There is also zero potential for appreciation. It's pegged. And what do we know about fiat? Well, stable coins are going to continue losing their value just like the dollar is because they're pegged. So the only way to counter that is to be able to keep the crypto that you originally transferred value from in order to get those stable coins. And that's why DigiDollar is so different. So what maintains or helps maintain the quote unquote stable coin peg? Well, in the case of DigiDollar, it's a 4-layer system. First of all, layer 1 is higher collateral. It's an over-collateralized system. And this system will be over-collateralized by anywhere from 200 to potentially 1,000%. And that means that in order to issue new DigiDollars, you have to put up more DigiByte in collateral than you're actually issuing. So this helps with severe volatility. The second layer is the dynamic collateral adjustment. So if the system becomes under stress, and we'll go into all this more in a technical deep dive, and then we'll show you in the wallet. But if the system's under stress, in order to issue new DigiDollars, there's what's called the dynamic collateral adjustment that kicks in to make sure that if you're going to mint new DigiDollars and the system collateralization ratio gets low, it'll actually boost it and require more collateral. So therefore, evening out and help stabilize the peg. A third part of this is what's called the ERR, emergency redemption ratio. Now, there's a chance for small periods of time at some point in the future with unforeseen black swan global events that the peg could dip temporarily below the 1-to-1. And if that happens, there's another measure that kicks in called the emergency redemption ratio, which means that in order to unlock the collateral of DigiByte you previously locked, you'll actually have to burn more DigiDollars than you originally minted. So that's in extreme scenarios. And then the fourth layer is a volatility freeze. So there's a circuit breaker built into the blockchain where if there's too much of a price swing in a short amount of time, it'll actually freeze all DigiDollar functionality on chain for either an hour, 24 hours, or a 36-hour cooldown to make sure that there's no death spiral situation that emerges. And remember, there's never any forced liquidations in this system. Your time locks are time locked until the time lock expires because it's cryptographically enforced on chain. Now, we'll get into all this more in the technical deep dive. But what are the real world benefits of DigiDollar? Well, first, you never have to sell. You can tap into the value of your crypto to use for whatever you want today without ever giving up your private keys. Now, this is very tax efficient. In a lot of jurisdictions, you're effectively giving a loan to yourself, right? This is no different than billionaires borrowing against their stocks. But in this particular case, you don't have to give up your private keys. So the speed for merchants, very, very low fees. At this point, it would be around a penny or less. And this works anywhere, anytime. And there's nobody that can censor you or stop you from doing this. And best part yet is this is actually working on testnet right now. And there are people from all over the world who have already experimented with it, used it, and tried it out. So this is what the time lock page. So vaults, a vault is whatever you locked up. So if you locked up enough DigiByte collateral to issue 100 DigiDollars, which is the minimum, that becomes a vault, which is then visible in the core wallet. Here's what the transactions look like inside the core wallet. And best yet, now we go into my favorite part, which is the technical deep dive of how DigiDollar actually works. So we are about to get really deep in the weeds and we are going to get very blockchainy. So please don't be intimidated. I know if you don't really understand some of the terms we're using, I'm going to go over some of the basics and I'm going to try and help break it down for you as simply as I can. This presentation is designed for everybody. And so my goal is by the end of this, you will have a deeper understanding of not only how a UTXO blockchain like Bitcoin or DigiByte or Litecoin works, but you'll understand all the basics of how the DigiDollar actually works on chain and is actually coded and implemented right now. So let's get started. The DigiDollar, the world's first UTXO native time lock over collateralized stablecoin. So by my estimation and AI estimation, we are 90% complete with the building of this. There's over 427 unit and functional tests. There's over 50,000 lines of code that's been implemented and 23 new RPC commands, which we will go into those. We'll explain what that is here in a little bit. So here is the outline for what we're about to go through. And like I said, I know you may be seeing some of these words and being like, what is that? Well, we're going to go over it. And I'm going to try and break it down to you. So if you are a beginner, please watch this and please take the time. And I think you'll find this very insightful. And so one of my old college professors used to say that in order to have an intelligent conversation with someone, it's important to first define the terms you're using. So I'm going to go over some of those terms, and later on we'll explain why this is important. But the first thing to understand is, what is a full node or the core wallet? Put simply, a full node is a node or a computer. It's typically a desktop or a server or something that is running a complete copy of the blockchain. This means it downloads and validates every block and transaction since the genesis in the beginning, right? Now, typically, in the case of Bitcoin or DigiByte or Litecoin, the core wallet, which is the main C++ code base, is a full node. So when you download the core wallet, you become part of the blockchain, because you literally are the direct node communicating peer-to-peer with other nodes that help validate and create the trustless environment and system we call a blockchain. Now, the first and main and most trusted way of creating a blockchain is the UTXO blockchain. So Bitcoin is a UTXO blockchain, DigiByte is a UTXO blockchain, Litecoin's a UTXO blockchain. And UTXO stands for unspent transaction output. And these are the digital coins that you own, right? It's like a physical bill, right? Like each Bitcoin, each DigiByte, etc. And so then you have two parts of this UTXO system. You have inputs and you have outputs, right? And how do you secure those outputs and those inputs? Well, you secure them by proving you own them with your private key. And this is that crazy long 256-bit thing we call the private key. And that's what you should never share, because that's how you prove that you own the inputs or the outputs or those coins, whether they be Bitcoins or they be DigiBytes or they be Litecoins. And so that private key proves you have an address, and an address is like the bank routing number. That's where you see like the DGB1P with a bunch of characters, or in the case of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin address or Litecoin, etc. Every chain has a different address. So how do you prove that address is yours with your private key? Well, you use something called a digital signature. And this is mathematical proof that you own the private key for the coins that you're signing without ever revealing it to the world, right? And so this helps you create, when you sign a transaction, you create an output. And this is where you effectively create coins that become the next input of the next block on the chain. Now, if you look at this diagram, we've got a very simple blockchain here. You have block 1, block 2, block 3. Now, Alice, she's got her input, which is 100 DigiByte. She wants to send Bob 70 DigiByte. Now, you'll notice she signs the transaction with her private key, creates a digital signature, which then creates two new outputs. And 70, the output of 70 goes to Bob, but then the other 30 go back to her own wallet in what's known as a change address transaction. Now, this all gets hashed in a block, except it's not just this transaction, it's all the other transactions that are happening worldwide. But then the next block in the blockchain, that 70 output to Bob actually becomes Bob's 70 DigiByte input. Now, let's say Bob then wants to send 50 DigiByte to Carol. Well, he signs his transaction, uses his private key, the digital signature happen, the outputs happen, 50 go to Carol's address, but then 20 go back to his change address inside his own wallet. And then when block 3 occurs, that output is now became an input for Carol in her wallet. So this is really the basics of how a blockchain works in its most rudimentary form. And that's what we're doing here. And this is all important when we get into how DigiDollar works. So how does this process work in a little more detail? Well, how are the transactions authorized and how are they validated? Well, we have some other terms that we need to get familiar with. One of them is script. So the script, which is inside Bitcoin and DigiByte, is a simple programming language that gives the blockchain commands to do certain things and define certain spending conditions. There's also no loops allowed in this system. It's one of the things Satoshi was against to help keep it secure and rigid. Now, part of that script includes single function instructions that are known as opcodes. So, for example, OP check sig is what Bitcoin and DigiByte use to verify a signature. Okay. Then there's basic arithmetic like OPAD and other stuff. Now, what is the signature algorithm that's used with Bitcoin and DigiByte? Well, typically and originally it was ECDSA, which stands for elliptic curve digital signature, right? And this is basically what's been used since the launch of Bitcoin, since the launch of DigiByte. There's another concept known as witness, which is where the signature data is stored separately from the transaction. And that's what the SegWit innovation was. And the important thing with that, and by the way, DigiByte was like the first major altcoin to actually implement SegWit, even before Litecoin did, it takes up less space on chain, right? So now what about Schnorr? So this is a new addition. Schnorr signatures are smaller, faster digital signatures that were incorporated into Bitcoin and DigiByte with the Taproot upgrade. So they become an important part of DigiDollar later on too. And then we have something we call P2TR, or pay to taproot. Pay to taproot. And this is important because DigiDollar transactions are P2TR. And like I said, this is why the Taproot upgrade earlier this year was so important for DigiByte, because it allows us to do more advanced smart contracts like DigiDollar, and they take up less space on chain. And then it allows us to create different spending paths that are only revealed to the user. And that's where we have masked or Merkleized alternative script trees. And I say that 10 times fast. That's a mouthful. But what it allows us to do, and we'll get into this in this presentation, is define how a DigiDollar is redeemed. And it's actually private to the person who issued it. And it actually allows for some pretty amazing things down the road for DigiDollar upgrades. And then we also have TapScript, which is the enhanced new scripting language that allows us to do more functionality with DigiDollar. And actually, the new custom opcodes or instructions for DigiDollar actually improve upon TapScript. So bear with me. This will make more sense here in a little bit. And then we're going to go over a few more terms. And those are CLTV, which is short for check, lock, time, verify. This is the time lock operation code. This means that when you lock your DigiByte as collateral, you can't access it until a certain block height in the future. Now, this was implemented in Bitcoin and DigiByte in 2015. It's been here for a long time, but it's critical to the way that DigiDollar works. This is related to lock height, which is the height of the block when your collateral will unlock. And then collateral is obviously the DigiByte that is time locked on chain, that is collateralizing and backing the value of DigiDollars on chain. Now, OP return is a special opcode that was added for arbitrary third-party data to be embedded on chain. And a lot of people might be familiar with the recent NOTs versus core debate. And that whole debate is centered around, should they increase the amount of data that can be arbitrarily put on chain? And right now, DigiByte is limited to 80 bytes. So it's very small, and that's so it takes up less space, and you can't spam the chain with it, right? And then it's important functionality with OP return is you can actually mark that output as unspendable. And that becomes very important with DigiDollar, which we'll go into in a minute. Then we have the idea of an oracle, which is a outside third-party source, okay, that gets the pricing data to bring it on chain. And this is something that's very hard to do, and we'll go into that. HD keys is hierarchical deterministic. This is how your wallet that stores your private keys is generated. Back in the old days, the legacy wallets, after I believe it was 100 new private keys, it would roll over and you could actually lose your private keys by backing it up. Well, with the new HD system, you just have to back it up once, and then all your keys are derived from that. And this is important because this is how you'll back up your DigiDollar private keys. And then what is a vault? Well, that is the time-locked P2TR, the pay-to-taproot output that holds the collateral with the mass pass. So this is why I wanted to go through these definitions, because this can get a little wordy. And then what is an RPC? That's a remote procedure call. This is how you give the node different commands to do different functionality. This is how things operate on servers. And usually the backend for exchanges or simpler wallets will all be using RPC commands with the core wallet. So now that we went through that, let's go over to the transaction lifecycle of a DigiDollar, the basics. There's three main functions that happen in the DigiDollar protocol. First is the mint, second is the transfer, and then the third is the redeem or the redemption. So when you mint, you create DigiDollars, and then you can see the TX version. When you transfer, you spend it, and this is basically signed with a 64-byte Schnorr signature. And then when you unlock after the time lock expires, then you redeem. So that's the basics. Now let's go to what a mint transaction looks like. So the reason we went through all this is because it was important to understand that input-output flow. So with DigiDollar, this is what a mint transaction looks like. Now, some of the people that are helping in the dev chat are like, why is there three outputs and one of them shows 0, 0? Well, that's what I'm about to explain here. So you have your inputs, which are your DigiByte. So you got to have DigiByte inputs in your wallet before you can mint a DigiByte or a DigiDollar transaction, right? And you can have any amount of inputs. Now, there are some more advanced things you got to do. Like if you've got 10,000 transactions of one, you might have to do some dedusting and consolidate some UTXOs before you're able to actually mint. But theoretically, okay, well, not theoretically, you can. You take your inputs, which are whatever DigiByte you want to mint or whatever amount of collateral is needed. Let's say you want to mint 100 DigiDollars, which is the minimum. Your wallet gathers the DGB UTXOs, then it creates three outputs. The first output is the collateral vault. So this is the time lock itself, and this is what your private keys secure. And that's why it's so important to remember that your private keys not only back up your DigiByte, but the vaults that are created. And the way this works is with a pay to taproot transaction that has a masked script in it and uses check lock time verify. And so as you can see here, you get your time locked DGB. There's two masked redemption paths, which we'll go over those in a minute. And both of these, in order to ever spend this output again, okay, you have to meet the check lock time verify expiration, meaning you have to wait until the time lock is achieved. Now, the second output is your DigiDollars, okay? And this is just a simple pay to taproot key path, okay? And this is what makes DigiDollar freely transferable. So when you go to redeem later on, you don't have to have the original DigiDollars that you minted. Any DigiDollars minted by anyone else can fulfill the redemption path, which we'll go into a second. And then the third output, VOUT2, is the OP return metadata. And this is where we get information that the rest of the blockchain can read and understand. Because it's important, these masked redemption paths are only visible to your wallet. They're not visible. And that's part of the security and privacy that Taproot enabled on Bitcoin and DigiByte. So now what is the anatomy of a transfer transaction for DigiDollars? Well, this is a little simpler. You've got two inputs. You've got your DigiDollar UTXOs, and then you're going to need a small amount of DigiByte to act as a fee or gas or fuel or whatever you want to call it. You still have to have a little DigiByte because remember, this whole system is still running on the DigiByte blockchain, and DigiByte is the native asset. And if you didn't have a small fee, people could come in and they could spam the transaction or the network and just overload it, and it's almost like a DDoS attack. So we don't want that. That's why you do have to pay a DigiByte fee, and you will have to over time probably increase a little bit in order to keep the network secure and stable. So you take the transfer, you take the inputs, which are the DigiDollar UTXOs. And by the way, these are tracked separate. DGB UTXOs and DigiDollar UTXOs have their own UTXO set. This is important to making this work native in an efficient, secure manner with consensus rules. So then when you transfer, you have possibly three outputs, sometimes only two. The first one is you just transfer to the recipient, which is the pay to taproot key path. So that way, when you transfer it, then whoever receives it, their keys can then sign it when they transfer those DigiDollars to the next person. But also, if let's say you go to send 100 DigiDollars, but you have 150 DigiDollars in that input, The other 50 they need to go to a change address, so it goes back into your wallet. So that'll be the second output. And then finally, the third output, or possibly only the second, if you sent an exact amount, like let's say 100 DigiDollars, you'd only have that one output, and then you'd have your OP return output, which is once again how the rest of the network can identify what's happening with the DigiDollar system. And then the third transaction is the redeem transaction, which is where you take those original inputs. And once again, it doesn't have to be the exact DigiDollars that you minted, tracked input and output. It has to be the exact amount, but just literally has to match. And then you burn them. And then the three outputs are your unlocked DGB. So the collateral, the DigiByte shows back up in your wallet. The OP return metadata. And if there's any fee change, that's another output. And the important thing here is there's actually two potential masked outputs, but we'll go into that in a second. Or actually, I guess we'll go into that right now. Now, this may be a little confusing, so we want to explain masked versus OP return. Why is there both? Why are there multiple outputs? Well, the important thing to understand here is masked is where the opcodes are used, these new opcodes, OP DigiDollar, OP DD Verify, OP Check Collateral. Those are private to your own wallet, but they're enforced by consensus rules and they're cryptographically enforced on chain. But only the owner's signature can spend these. And the time locks are enforced by Check Lock Time Verify and the consensus rules, which we'll get into in the end. But that's only visible to your local wallet. The OP return metadata is important because that's how the network is able to track what's happening, and anybody in real time can go see the total amount of DigiDollars in circulation and the total amount of DigiByte locked as collateral. That's why we have these two systems. And remember, the pay to taproot are hashed, and so other nodes can't read the amounts from the hash, right? And so these are the custom opcodes that are specific for the P2TR mass pass, the Merkleized abstract syntax trees. But that's what's going on here. So you can come back and reference this. By the way, this slide deck is on GitHub, and anybody can come reference this. There's other technical documentation, and you can go through this and you can study it more. So when you go to unlock your time-locked vault and get your DigiByte back, there's two ways that this can be done. The first one is a normal redemption. That's when everything's running normally. The entire DigiDollar system is over-collateralized. But then the second part is if the emergency redemption ratio kicks in, you're going to have to burn more DigiDollars than you minted. So if for whatever reason we dip below, like say 95, 90%, you're actually going to have to burn more DigiDollars, 120, 110%, or even more to be able to get your DigiByte unlocked. And that helps bring the system back to stability, right? Looks like it's kind of, yeah, there you can see that. All right, so now what is the format for embedding DigiDollar transactions in OP return look like? Well, this is what you would probably call the DigiDollar protocol. Now, if you're old and you remember how the original color coins system worked, or even how, like, you know, the first version of Ethereum, you're dealing with a protocol level system where you're making the most efficient use of data in the tiniest space possible. So remember, OP return only has 80 bytes of room. And I believe it should stay that way because I don't believe in spanning the chain. So what does that mean? That means you have to create protocols that run within this really, really tiny space. And that's what we've done here with DigiDollar. So there's effectively two types of OP return metadata when a DigiDollar transaction happens. And both of these, the first byte marks that OP return as unspendable. So that means that output stops there on chain and doesn't become an input somewhere else. And that's why it shows 0.0. And that was what was confusing people in the dev chat. That's why that's happening. Now, the next 3 bytes are the DD marker, right? And that's signifying to the blockchain that, hey, this was a DigiDollar transaction. And then we get into the third part of the protocol, which is actually the transaction type. And as you can see here, that takes up 2 bytes of data. And what happens is there's effectively four transaction types right now. There's a mint, a transfer, a redeem, and then the ERR, right? Then you have the amount, the lock height, and the amounts. So that is literally how you break down the encoding for the DigiDollar protocol in an OP return transaction. Good stuff, right? Okay, now we get into oracles. So what are oracles? Well, oracles it's how we bring DigiByte pricing data on chain. Now, a native blockchain is isolated by design. It can't see the outside world, so it doesn't know what the price of DigiByte is. Like the current DigiByte blockchain has no idea what the price of DigiByte is, right? Well, this is why we have to create the Oracle system. And an Oracle is responsible for going out to many exchanges. Currently on testnet, I think there's 7. We're going to add more because we don't ever want to trust just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 sources. We want to have as many external sources that we can and then average them and then bring that data on chain. And we don't want to have just one oracle doing it because that oracle can be DDoSed. We don't want to have just 3 oracles. We don't want to have just 10. We want to have as many oracles as possible because the more oracles, the more resilient, the harder it is to try and manipulate and game the system. And at any given time, when DigiDollar goes live on mainnet, you're never going to rely on just one oracle. There'll be multiple oracles that are brought together. There'll be effectively a mass transaction where you take multiple, and we'll go into how oracles work here in a second. Multiple oracles will do a Schnorr signature, and then that'll actually be the consensus price that the blockchain puts onto the blockchain. So bear with me here for a minute. Let's go to the next step. So currently we're in phase 1. There's actually only one oracle for testing, so we can debug the rest of it. The next phase, which we're about to go into, will be an 8 of 15 Schnorr threshold for testnet. So we're going to need help with more people running oracles. And it's really easy to run an oracle. So how do you run an oracle? Well, you literally generate a new address. So you boot up your core wallet. So all of the DigiDollar functionality is currently only working in a core wallet, right? Which is you just download the full wallet, the core wallet, you install it, you create a new wallet, and then you get a new address. You dump your private key to that address, and then you're going to use that private key to sign Oracle messages to prove that you really are the Oracle you say you are, and it's not being spoofed. And all you have to do is your DigiByte conf, which is your configuration file that you can set. You add Oracle equals 1. You spin up the wallet, and you type start, DigiByte CLI, start Oracle, and then you put your private key, okay, which is not public. That's just local to your node. And then what you'll do is you'll submit that public key to the developers, to GitHub. We put the public key up so we can verify, hey, this signature was made with this Oracle's private key. And so to start out, we're going to have like a couple dozen individuals in the DigiByte community that are going to be running oracles, right? And that's what we're going to be doing for this phase 2 part of testnet. And so then once you start the Oracle system, the core wallet takes it from there and handles all the functionality of going and getting pricing data, averaging the pricing data from multiple sources, signing it, and then whenever a miner, mines a new transaction, it actually takes that price and it embeds it in the blockchain itself. So once again, we got to go back kind of to the basics of how a block is structured. For those that may not know, the way a block works, and this is the same for Bitcoin, Litecoin, DigiByte, and this is how we're modifying it, is you'll have the block. Now in the block, you have 3 parts. You have the header, which is the basic information of the block. Then you have the Coinbase transaction. That's where newly mined coins are issued to the miner who mined the block. And then you have all the transactions as the third part that were included in that block, right? All the inputs and outputs there and how the UTXO set's changing. So what we're going to be doing in order to get the Oracle data on chain is modifying the Coinbase transaction. And if you ever wondered how Coinbase got its name, this is how they got their name. The Coinbase transaction is the mint transaction for newly minted Bitcoin or Litecoin or DigiByte that come onto the blockchain. So what we're doing is so you have V out 2, which is the amount of newly mined DigiByte, the block reward, but we're creating a V-out1, which is the OP Oracle message, okay? And this is another protocol. So this is like the DigiDollar Oracle protocol. And so the way this works is we're first marking it as unspendable. We're defining the Oracle number and then the version so we can upgrade this version in the future. The Oracle ID, which is signing the message, and then the price, and then the timestamp of the price. And so this is how we're getting Oracle pricing data onto the blockchain. So it's 22 bytes of data, right? So there you go. So if you have any questions after this presentation, please ask. I'll do more talks. I'll do more live streams. Okay. So now we need to talk about the tiered collateral system. And so what is required when you mint DigiDollars? So currently on testnet, we have anywhere from 1 hour to 10 years, right? And there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of feedback. This is where we're open to people's ideas. But the idea is if you want to issue, let's say, 100 DigiDollars for 30 days, currently you have to lock up $500 worth of DigiByte in order to get that 30-day time lock. Now, if you went out to 10 years, you only have to put up 200, right? And for testnet only, for short term, we have 1,000%. Now, the idea behind this is we're over collateralizing the system. So that way, and as we all know, crypto's volatile. It can go up and down. DigiByte over 12 years has had multiple significant volatility swings. So we never want the entire system to be under collateralized. We always want the system to be over collateralized to let people know, hey, these DigiDollars, they're actually good. They're cryptographically backed by DigiByte that's locked on chain that nobody can manipulate. Nobody can print out of thin air. Like it's literally the blockchain trustless consensus enforcing it, right? So we're currently in the process of analyzing these numbers, right? Now, some people have suggested maybe when we launch on mainnet, we don't allow anything more than a 3-year mint. You know, maybe a part one is we only do 30 days to 3 years, right? Because let's face it, locking your DigiByte up for 10 years is a long time, right? So there's people going back and forth, and this is where I'd love your input. We're also working on some advanced modeling to test different scenarios because remember, at any given time, you're going to have people locking up at all these different lengths. And then you're going to have all these different variables and price swings. And so the amount of collateral backing is changing block to block. And you can see this on testnet. As the price fluctuates, the system health bar changes, right? So the reason we only have a handful is it makes it much more secure because you're enforcing standards and you're enforcing that, first of all, you have to redeem the full amount that you locked up. Like there's no partial redemptions because that exposes potentially more security vulnerabilities. But the idea is, and by the way, this is based kind of on the treasury model, right? Like the time spans. That's where the idea comes from. But the idea is by having a rigid, strict set of rules that everybody knows what's happening, everybody can determine, hey, this system is real and it's collateralized, it's over collateralized, and it's healthy. That's the idea behind this, the collateral scale. So once again, the 4-layer protection system. So as we know, crypto can be volatile. So what is the first layer protection? Well, that is the over collateral. By requiring anywhere from 200% to 1,000%, you absorb volatility before it even matters, right? So most of the time, the system's going to be operating, it's going to be over collateralized, and life goes on as normal. But what if, you know, heaven forbid, there's something like a nuclear explosion and, you know, every market on earth nukes 95% in a matter of hours? Well, there's 3 other things that can come into play. There's the dynamic collateral adjustment, which means if you go to mint and the system health dips below 200%, below 150%, automatically new mints require anywhere from 1 to twice as much collateral. So once it dips, I think it's below 120%, every new mint is going to require twice as much collateral. So that means a 30-day lockup will then require 1,000% collateral. So what you're doing is you're over collateralizing even more, right? And then if heaven forbid it did dip below 100% collateralization system-wide, if you go to redeem and unlock your DigiByte, the amount of DigiDollars you're actually going to have to burn goes up. So you might have to burn 120%, 150%. And what that does is it's taking DigiDollars out of circulation and it's incentivizing people to wait and let the system stabilize, right? And then obviously volatility freeze. So the fourth thing is if the system like sees a 20 or 30% change within a 24-hour period or an hour period, it automatically freezes. Now, there's various levels that this kicked in. We can discuss this more, but the idea is that the blockchain itself will put a effectively a freeze on any new mints or redemptions till things can kind of equalize and sort itself out, right? So effectively, the system will lock up for a short term to prevent any sort of chaos, panic, death spiral, right? So those are the 4 layers. Now there's code enforcing this. This still needs to be fully and more implemented, and well, it is implemented, but it needs to be fully tested and modeled and simulated. And this is where we could use your help thinking through these scenarios, because the idea is we always want to make sure DigiDollar is over collateralized. So for those of you who've never worked with a core wallet or worked with crypto on a server, you know, typically every mainstream service you use, like an exchange or a wallet on your phone or something that you know, a stat site, will be running a core wallet on the back end for whatever blockchain it's using, whether it's Bitcoin, DigiByte, Litecoin, etc. And the way you integrate functionality and you use things into a third-party wallet or service is typically you use RPC commands to interact with the core wallet, right? And so these are the new RPC commands that are being implemented with DigiDollar. And these are the commands in the way that if you're a developer and you want to integrate DigiDollar into like a third-party wallet or a website or an exchange, these are the commands that you would utilize to integrate DigiDollar. So there's more documentation, developer integration guide that will be created, but there's already documentation on these RPC commands on GitHub. But the idea is, you know, on a core wallet, and I'll do this in the demo part, you can pull it up and you can type these commands and you can do various things. So there might be more RPC commands by the time DigiDollar hits mainnet, but just know this is the functionality that's been implemented so far. So now address formats. Now, if you don't know, DigiByte currently has roughly 4 types of mainnet addresses. Now, when DigiByte first launched, DigiByte addresses started with a D. Now that was confusing because so did Dogecoin and a couple other coins. And I remember helping people fix it when they sent Dogecoin to DigiByte and DigiByte to Dogecoin back in 2014, 2015. So later on, when the protocol got more advanced, we changed it so that way the address prefix for mainnet DigiByte transactions started with DGB. So currently, a SegWit address, which is kind of the main thing most people have adopted right now, starts with DGB1Q, and then Taproot is DGB1P. And the way I remember this is DGB1 privacy, because Taproot and TapScript and Mast is private to you. So that's the way I remember it. Now for DigiDollar, the addresses are going to be a little different. Mainnet addresses will start with DD, testnet is TD, and regtest is RD. So remember, mainnet is the main blockchain. That's what really matters, that has the value. Testnet is where you mimic mainnet, and then regtest is where you set up a local blockchain to yourself. And that's like where a lot of the development stuff we're doing. There's some scripts you can run to test advanced functionality, but it's literally your own local personal blockchain. That's what a regtest is. So it's important for testing. So now we go into the wallet storage architecture. So how do DigiDollars get stored and how do you secure your private keys? Well, it basically uses the existing wallet functionality, which at this point we've migrated with version 8.23 onwards, and the latest version 8.26, into descriptor wallets, which this Bitcoin's done the same thing. And that actually uses an SQLite database. You can see the position keys, how it's stored. It's all modeled after how the main DigiByte storage happens in the descriptor wallet. Now on here it says legacy wallets, Berkeley DB. There's some code that's doing that right now. However, we want to get away from that. Like, everybody needs to use the descriptor wallet, which is by default when everybody's even going to set this up, right? So how does this work with UTXO and private key management? It is separate from your DGB UTXOs. So DigiDollar UTXOs are tracked independently. And there's some of the in-memory code, how it's laid out, and then the functions employed there, right? And then if you want to look at this code, that's where you can look at it. Now, to back up and restore, you only got to back up one wallet, and you'll get your regular DigiByte and your DigiDollars. That's the way it's architected. I think that's the summary. So if you do a reindex or a rescan, it'll reconstruct the DD positions from OP return. That's why we've got that public data in there. And then the UTXO scan with the UTXO set will restore your balance. Yeah, and it'll do advanced. Now, this is where we can use your help testing, these edge cases, these more advanced scenarios, because the last thing we want to make sure before this gets deployed to mainnet is that if somebody backs up a wallet, that there's no issue with restoring it at some point in the future, right? And we've already tested that. It's working, but we want to think through all edge cases. So this is another reason we don't want to use legacy back wallets, because Berkeley DB, which hasn't been updated in a long time, Bitcoin's moved away from it. We're moving away from it. But remember that wallet.dat file, that's where everything is, right? You got to encrypt it with a passphrase. You got to back it up. You got to store it. And then that backup will work for both your DigiByte and your DigiDollars. And this is all in the core wallet. So let's talk about consensus. So what are the consensus changes that are happening with DigiDollar? What's going to make DigiDollar work? Okay, because we have this decentralized blockchain, and everybody running a node enforces the consensus. That's why the more people we have running full nodes and core wallets, the more decentralized it is. So a lot of crap chains only run on 20 or 30 nodes. DigiByte, I think we've had over 20,000 different unique node IPs seen in the last 2 or 3 months. It's very decentralized. At any given time, I think Bitcoin's running around 22, 23,000 full nodes. I believe with DigiDollar, we can beat Bitcoin and have more full nodes out there, because we're going to teach people the value of running your own core wallet on your own computer and securing your own DigiDollars and becoming your own bank. That's the whole point, decentralization in a true peer-to-peer fashion. So the more people running this, the more people we're going to be able to enforce consensus rules. So what consensus rules have been implemented right now? The first thing is the amount limits. So currently there's $100 DigiDollar minimum and $100,000 DigiDollar maximum mint. And that's done for several reasons. But the idea is when we first launch, let's keep it as confined and structured as possible. And let's make sure that, the system works as intended, and then we can explore changes to that in the future. The second thing is collateral ratio. What good is a transaction if you sign it and you don't have any collateral? So that's enforced by consensus. The output structure, everything I just went to with the Taproot outputs, that's all enforced with consensus. Oracle price, enforced with consensus. The DCA multiplier, the conversion, the output limit, the pay to Taproot required, the time lock, CLTV. Now that's been enforced since 2015. DigiDollar burning, the partial redemption is something people have talked about. It's disabled for the time being. We had a discussion. You must redeem the full amount in order to keep the system more secure and honest and structured. The ERR multiplier, and then you have the volatility protection. So all this is enforced at a consensus level. So if you have a misbehaving node that tries to send transactions that don't adhere to any of these rules, the network ignores it and no other node relays it. That's what makes this system decentralized and work. So what about block level consensus? Well, the Oracle data is the biggest change to the block validation, right? Because we're changing the Coinbase transaction. So we're doing it in a specific format with a specific size, and that's where we have this consensus with the digital signature. And this is a super important thing about keeping the Oracle system honest, keeping it from being attacked, keeping it from being hacked, keep it from being spoofed, keep it from all these things. We're using the built-in cryptography of the blockchain to help enforce Oracle pricing. And then we have new timestamp rules, right? And then we have the new opcodes, and then we have a data validation flow. And if none of this, if miners don't follow these rules, then if they're, for example, a miner is trying to create a fake price, then their block's going to be rejected and orphaned. So this is how we do consensus to enforce DigiDollar. Now, all of this, we want more people to get, provide input on, right? Think through how this, stuff could be gamed, right? How could a miner get around these consensus rules? Do we need more rules, right? Like, these are the kind of questions. That's why I'm doing this presentation, to have people to ask, right? So now, finally, how do we get from testnet to mainnet? Well, that'll be done similar to how DigiByte has done soft forks and hard forks over the last 12 years. And that's through a process called BIP9, right? Or backwards compatible activation. And that has 4 steps, and it takes, a few months. I think the earliest we've done this is it took 4 or 5 months. I think Taproot still took 3 or 4 months before this happened. So we have to hit a majority of people who've already upgraded. And this is where the decentralization part comes in. If people don't want this system, the miners out there, the other people running wallet nodes, they could reject it and not upgrade, right? Like, this is a possibility. We have to have 70% of the network in the mined blocks signal that they support this upgrade. And then it goes through 4 phases, which is defined, started, locked in, and active. And the idea behind this is it'll take a minimum of 5 weeks, but it gives people warning and time to upgrade. Because once this is upgraded, because we're changing the rules of consensus, the rules of the blockchain, all old nodes, are going to start rejecting some of the DigiDollar blocks. They're going to reject other things. So this is why we need everybody to upgrade, right? Now, transactions can still be sent the old way. It'll still be backwards compatible. But the idea is, once this is going and it's signaled, and actually that information is not correct. I need to change that. I worked on this presentation for like a month, right? So this is a lot, I know. But anyway, this is how DigiDollar becomes real on chain. Now, I don't know when this is going to happen. We want to make 110% absolutely sure we've thought of every possible scenario the system can be attacked. We've modeled it, and we've worked out the bugs, on testnet. And I'll tell you, we've released 7 versions in 2 weeks, improving things, tweaking things, fixing things, because of the amazing feedback from people in the developer chat from all over the world who are giving feedback. So now, with all that, let's do the fun part, and let's actually go. Whoops, where is it here? Let's go look at the core wallet. So this is the DigiByte core wallet. This is version 9.26, which is, as you can see, similar to version 8.26. Now, once again, a core wallet is a full node that is literally the full implementation of the blockchain, helps validate and relay blocks and transactions. And this is where everything happens. Every exchange, every service, every third party, they're running a core wallet on the back end. But you know what? When you download a core wallet, you become part of the blockchain, and you can be your own bank because you don't have to rely on somebody else to run a core wallet for you. So if you've used the Bitcoin core wallet, Litecoin core wallet, they function similar, although I think ours looks a lot better because we've actually done some UI enhancements. But as you can see here on testnet, this is currently connected to the DigiByte testnet. I've got a balance of 2.3 million DigiByte. I can send DigiByte, I can receive DigiByte, I can see my transaction history. But now I have this new tab called DigiDollar. And boom, there you have it, the DigiDollar overview. Now, as you can see here, I've already received some transactions for some other people, and I already did a mint, right? Well, now over here, you see the network DigiDollar supply and the network DGB locked. So what that means is real time, block to block, we not only get a change in what the real actual DigiByte price is right now, but you can see how many DigiDollars have been created or minted. And this is on testnet. And by the way, we've reset testnet multiple times. So like the previous version had almost like 200,000, but this version of testnet currently has about 2,600, 100 of which, well, 300 of which are mine, but I received that from another wallet. But the cool part is you can see that the network and the DigiDollar system is actually backed. There's no guessing. There's no company to trust. There's no audits. You have to like, trust me, bro, we have this, wink, wink. No, this is cryptography proving that there are 3.6 million DigiByte that are time locked, backing 2,600 DigiDollars that are in circulation. And currently, it's over collateralized because everyone's doing short-term mints. And so the over collateralization, for every one DigiDollar in circulation, there are $7.8 worth of DigiByte locked up backing it. And that's what makes this an over collateralized, decentralized system. So then the other tabs are similar. You can send DigiDollars, receive DigiDollars, you can mint, you can redeem, and then you can look at your vault. So now, as you see here, before I made this video, I actually locked up some DigiDollars. I minted some DigiDollars, which means I got a time lock with 175,000 DigiByte locked as collateral. And I can see this history. Now, let me walk you through a mint. And I want you to notice something. Now, you see here, I have 2.3 million DigiByte in my balance. If I go back to DigiDollar and I want to do a 1 hour mint, I'm going to type 100, which is the minimum, and it's going to time lock 175,000 DigiByte, okay? So let me go back here one more time. 2.3, right? 2,324,000. I'm going to mint this. It's going to ask me. It's going to ask me again. Are you sure? You can't touch this. Once it's time locked, it's done. So boom, there we go. Now guess what? I got a transaction. Oh, I already got a confirmation. 3 confirmations. And guess what? Look at this. The network total just increased by 100 DigiDollars, and my balance just increased by 100 DigiDollars. And as you can see, I just minted new DigiDollars. Now, if I go to the overview page, you see how my balance went down? That's because it's time locked. That balance is no longer available to this wallet until the time lock expires, right? Now you can see that. Now, effectively, if you wanted to receive and send, which you can do, and I encourage everybody after this video, go download a testnet wallet. I'm going to put out a video specifically on how to set it up and do all this. It's really simple. The information's in the latest release, but you generate the address, copy that address, send it to somebody in the dev chat, and they'll send you DigiDollar, right? So super simple, super fast. Let me do a quick redeem. Let me go to the vault, and what if I wanted to get this back? Well, you'll notice my balance is $399. I've got enough to burn. Remember, I can burn any amount. I'm going to burn it. I'm going to redeem and unlock, and boom, there's my redeem. And look at this. Oh, it needs to update on the next one. Here we go. Let's wait for it to confirm. And once it's confirmed, as you can see, my balance has gone. I need to make sure it updates, and it's still pending. So sometimes it takes a little bit, but anyway, that is DigiDollar. Now, I know that was a lot, and if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Please share this far and wide. Please like, please subscribe, please retweet, whatever platform, X, YouTube, whatever you watch this on. Please share this, okay? This is game changing. Nobody has done a system like this before, and this is designed to empower you. We the people, power to we the people. So, thank you so much. If you've got any questions, please post them, and please come join the developer chat. Help us test, help us debug, help us make DigiDollar become a reality. And with that, thank you so much for watching this video. And until next time, stay decentralized.
Can you feel the shift? The world is waking up. No more waiting. No more walls. Tired of the system, tired of the slow, waiting on permission for where your money goes. They tell you wait a week, they tell you pay the fee, but that ain't freedom, and that ain't for me. I need the speed of light, I need to break the chain, a digital revolution running through That's all it takes to build a bridge that never breaks. Global access, open door. This is what we've been waiting for. Secure, fast forward, go. DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. Decentralized, we take the flight. From the city to the sand, power back in your hand. DigiByte, changing lives. It's more than just a coin. It's a brand new way to empower the people, giving them a say across the ocean, across the divide. No bank account needed to join the ride. Blue logo rising, the blocks never stop. Proof of work, yeah, straight to the top. 15 seconds, watching land value moving hand to hand. Global access, open door. This is what we've been waiting for. Unstoppable, unbreakable now. DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. Decentralized, we take the flight. From the city to the sand, power back in your hand. DigiByte, changing lives. Imagine a world where the barriers fall, where the smallest voice can stand up tall. Security is freedom, speed is opportunity. One blockchain, one community. Are you ready? Let's change the world. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, let's go! DigiByte, the future is changing lives. Can you feel the shift? The world is waking up. No more waiting. No more walls. Tired of the system. Tired of the slow. Waiting on permission for where your money goes. They tell you wait a week. They tell you pay the fee. But that ain't freedom. And that ain't for me. I need the speed of light. I need to break the chain. A digital revolution running through my veins. 15 seconds, that's all it takes to build a bridge that never breaks. Global access, open door. This is what we've been waiting for. Secure, fast forward, go! DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. Decentralized, we take the flight. From the city to the sand, power back in your hand. DigiByte, changing lives. It's more than just a coin. It's a brand new way to empower the people, giving them a say across the ocean, across the divide. No bank account needed to join the ride. Blue logo rising, the blocks never stop. unstoppable, unbreakable now. DigiByte, changing lives. We're cutting through the noise tonight. Decentralized, we take a flight. From the city to the sand, power back in your hand. DigiByte, changing lives. Imagine a world where the barriers fall, where the smallest voice can stand up tall. Security is freedom, speed is opportunity. One blockchain, one community. Are you ready? Let's change the world. One.